Good day, everyone, wherever you are, whether you're watching us live or watching the rebroadcast of this webinar on entry tips for the 2025 Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. Welcome. I'm Michael Gallagher, the founder and executive chairman of the Stevie Awards, and we're really pleased and privileged today to have with us Chris Robinson, who's the founder and managing director of Boost Awards in the United Kingdom, which serves clients worldwide. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Michael.
Before I tell everyone about the Stevie Awards, let's hear a little bit about your company.
Okay, thank you very much. So there I am on the right there. My name, as you said, is Chris Robinson, and this is a large number of my team. As Boost Awards, we help people enter awards. So I've been invited today because we were founded in 2006, and we've helped people enter literally thousands of awards, including hundreds of entries for the Stevie Awards. And I'm going to try and condense 19 years worth of experience into a few responses to Michael's questions today. So hopefully we can work together to share some top tips. We claim to be the world's first award entry consultancy, and no one's ever managed to successfully challenge that claim. So that's our bold claim now. And our other key thing is we've helped our clients win over 2,000 awards to date. So that's winning awards, all credible independent awards like the Stevies. And you might have seen us from our websites, which are super popular, like the awards list sites listed there. And that's us. So
Okay.
back to you, Michael.
Thank you for that introduction, Chris. Now, most of the content that you've really turned up here for today, we're going to cover in the latter part of this program to talk about what really makes an effective nomination for a Stevie Awards competition. But I'm assuming that some of you, at least, don't really understand the Stevie Awards and what we're about. One of the questions we get most often by email is, how do I enter the Stevie Awards? And our first question is, well, which one? Because we have 9 of them. I established the Stevie Awards in 2002. Our first program, the American Business Awards, was staged in 2003. We now get more than 12,000 nominations every year from organizations and individuals of all types in more than 70 nations around the world. Most of the organizations that submit nominations to Stevie Awards programs every year are small and mid-sized organizations that are still building their brands. You can see some of the names of some of the world famous brands that have participated in won Stevie Awards. But again, most of our winners every year are not these globally famous companies. They're organizations that are just getting started or that are mid-sized and recognize that winning a valuable award like a Stevie Award can help them to build and boost their brand. Now, there's a lot of text on this slide. You'll see there's a lot of text on a lot of our slides. I'm not going to read all the text for you. We're going to send you these slides afterwards. You can read them at your leisure. But I'll just cover some of the most important points and then ask Chris for some feedback on them as we go here. One of the things I wanted to point out on this slide is in each of our competitions every year, 30 to 40% of the nominations receive some level of recognition. And we have several levels. We have gold, silver, and bronze. Sometimes it's higher than that. We've had instances where it was closer to 50% a couple of years ago with our Middle East and North Africa Stevie Awards. It depends on the judges' scores, and we'll talk about the judging in a little bit. Chris and I were talking about the Stevie Award trophy and how that came to be the other day. And when I started the Stevie Awards, I approached R.S. Owens, the company that at that time in Chicago made the Oscar. They asked me how heavy I wanted the Stevie Award to be. I said, well, how heavy is an Oscar? They said 8 pounds. I said, well, it should be 8 pounds. And the trophy that is now our grand award was for many years the Stevie Award trophy. And you can see the image of the trophy on this page. In addition to the many thousands of nominations we get from many thousands of organizations around the world, we have more than 1,000 professionals around the world who participate in the judging process each year. We have an open application process where anyone can apply to be a judge. We get many thousands of applications every year from people who want to be judged. We only accept a few hundred new judges every year. We also invite back people who've judged in the past, who've done a good job of that, to be judges again. We also invite past winners to be among the current year's judges. And each of our programs are judged by anywhere from 100 to 400 judges every year. Before we move on, I'm going to tell you a little bit, very briefly, about each of the 9 competitions. Anything you'd like to add here, Chris?
No, it's just to say the scale of the Stevie Awards is extraordinary. We've got 5,000 awards in our database, and those numbers that you mentioned. I haven't seen any other awards program anywhere near those numbers, and that makes it, and I'm completely impartial here, we have to help companies pick which awards to enter. And I'm writing down a lot of those numbers because I wasn't familiar with them, but that's some pretty impressive statistics.
Yeah, we're very proud of all the judges that we have. And it's our policy. In fact, when we designed the original Stevie Award system, it was designed so that every nomination at the end of the process would have at least 5 ratings from 5 judges. And
That's
the system
excellent.
is designed to ensure that. And one of the things that we make available to all entrants are all of the judges' comments, favorable or unfavorable, about their nominations. Obviously,
And
favorable comments can be used in promotions. Unfavorable comments can be used to help better nominations in the future.
can
I
I
also
say how good that is? I just want to say, just commend you on that, because most awards don't do that. And it's so valuable that you do that, and provide people something really meaningful, because it gives them a valid reason if they didn't win or did win. It's fantastic feedback. Every client who's entered your awards has found that valuable. So just wanted to.
we found that people find one of the things they find most valuable about winning is just getting the judges' positive comments that they can use on social media or their other promotions. Okay, moving on. I'm going to tell you very little bit about each of our 9 programs. The oldest one, as I mentioned, is the American Business Awards. We just last week announced the winners in the 23rd annual edition of the ABAs, and any individual or organization operating in the USA can participate in this program. It's an omnibus program, meaning we have lots of categories for lots of different things, lots of different disciplines, marketing, customer service, human resources, management, videos, events, all sorts of things. And when I say operating in the USA, that means if your organization or you are outside the USA, you can nominate in the ABAs if you're nominating achievements or activities or people that are actually in the United States. The second year, we started the International Business Awards, which has sort of the same categories as the American Business Awards, but the scope is global. So any organization or individual worldwide can participate in the International Business Awards. And again, it's an omnibus program with lots of different categories. And that competition receives nominations from organizations and individuals each year in more than 60 nations and territories. Last year, it received more than 3,600 nominations, and that's currently accepting nominations through June 11th. Chris, I'll ask you to comment on any of these after I finish going through each of them. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business will open for its 22nd edition in May. It'll culminate with an award ceremony in New York in November. And that competition recognizes female entrepreneurs, female executives, female employees, and female-run or started organizations around the world. Among Stevie Awards staff, it's our favorite program because we give at all of our programs, and one of the things that's unique is we give every organization that comes, for the most part, an opportunity to get on stage and make a brief speech. And any of us who've been in the awards business know women give much better speeches than men. Men get up and in 30 seconds, thank the team and don't say much else. Women somehow, I could tell you stories if we had time, tell their whole life story and how all the obstacles they overcame in making their business successful, and do that in 30 seconds. It's really a wonderful program. The Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service recognizes achievement in those disciplines and in business development. It will open again in July of this year for its 20th edition. We just finished up the 19th edition in New York earlier this month. The Asia Pacific Stevie Awards, our ceremony for that is coming up the week after next, actually, in Seoul, South Korea. It recognizes innovation in the workplace in 29 markets in the Asia Pacific region. We do that ceremony in a different Asian nation each year. This year it's in Seoul. Last year it was in Manila in the Philippines. We've done it in Sydney, Shanghai, Singapore, among other nations. It will open again for entries in September. The German Stevie Awards is currently accepting nominations through June 12th, and that is a competition for German-speaking Europe. When we started it, it was just for Germany, and then we opened it up to other nations in Europe in which German is an official language. And they are Austria, Belgium, Germany, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. That is one of the few programs in which we accept nominations in a language other than English. All of the ones I've covered so far, nominations have to be in English. And the German Stevie Awards, they can be German or English. And this program is also unique in that we don't have entry fees. In most of the other programs, while we do have a good number of free categories in all of the programs, most of the categories require payment of an entry fee. You can submit an unlimited number of entries to the German Stevie Awards without paying an entry fee. What you would pay if you have any winning nominations is a winner's fee just for the winning nominations. So let's say in the German Stevie Awards, you submitted 10 nominations and 3 of them win some level of recognition, you would pay the winner's fee just for those 3. The Stevie Awards for Great Employers is our HR Awards program. Chris mentioned that it's one of his clients' favorites. It is currently accepting entries through June 11th. The award ceremony for that will be in New York in September. And there are a lot of fine-grained categories for achievement in human resources. And there are also Employer of the Year categories that are quite popular that also have a public voting component. The Middle East and North Africa Stevie Awards is the only other competition besides the German awards in which we accept entries in a second language, in this case in Arabic. And like the German Stevie Awards, it does not have entry fees. It has winner's fees. So again, submit 10 entries, 3 of them win. You only have to pay the winner's fee for those 3. That program will open again for entries in November. To date, we've done the first 6 editions in Ras Al Khaimah in the United Arab Emirates. The next edition, 2026, will be in Istanbul. And finally, the program we're here to talk about today, which is our newest program. We're on the 2nd edition. The Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence is a program we wanted to start for a long time, but the COVID pandemic put the kibosh on that for a while, and we were pleased we get it off the ground last year. It's not just a program for information technology. When people say technology, they just think about information technology. We wanted it to be about technology in general. So in this competition, there are 20 category groups for architectural technology, agricultural technology, biotechnology, information technology, transportation technology, energy technology, artificial intelligence. And within each of those groups, there are 11 common categories. So you're sure to find a category there for you. We'll go over the competition in detail. And we're accepting entries in that competition through June 13th. So I'm going to catch your breath here and ask Chris to comment on any of these competitions. I know you and your clients have some preferences about the ones that you like. Tell us about your experience with these competitions.
Well, thank you very much. What we find with the Stevie Awards is, as you've explained, is a breadth of choice. There's a huge number of categories, a huge number of awards. So what we tend to find is people, our recommendation is take a strategic approach to awards and consider your messaging, your stories for timing when a story is ready for entry. And because your awards go around the calendar, and they have different messaging. It could be that one of your strategic messages is we're a great place to work, or it could be that we are a leading technology company. But the nice thing about your awards is that the phrasing of the awards and the categories makes it really easy to align it to a business or a marketing strategy. So I'd recommend people look at the technology awards and also look at, if you're a tech company, you might want to go for the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service to say we offer an international award-winning customer service. And so your awards are great for those sorts of messaging, but I would encourage people to, and we were talking about it earlier, Michael, about looking at them as a whole. And sometimes people enter a region, so they could go for the America or the APAC or the Germany awards, and then re-enter it into the International Business Awards. So there's loads of overlap geographically in terms of themes. For Technology Excellence Awards, there's loads of tech categories in all the other awards. So and it's lovely that you can recognize a lot of different stories in a lot of different ways. And the good news is, although the entry forms aren't identical, they're very similar, which allows you to recycle your content and get lots of recognition for lots of people, lots of projects and stories, but without it being too labor intensive.
Great. So here's a slide outlining the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. And again, I'm not going to read all these points. You all can read this at your leisure when you get the slides. It is the 2nd year. It's the youngest competition. And we received more than 600 nominations last year from organizations and individuals in 21 nations and territories. And we did get a lot of, in the first edition, a lot of individual nominations from individual technology professionals nominating themselves, because we have categories for that. And if you look at last year's winners list, which is on the website at stevieawards.com/tech, you'll see that many of them came from world famous companies, from Amazon, from Meta, from Tesla, from global brands. But again, most of the winners are not global brands. They're organizations that are still building their brands, or individual persons that are still building their personal brands. The winners were determined by the average scores of more than 100 professionals last year. We'll have more judges this year, as we expect more entries. And the award ceremony was held in New York. It was a joint ceremony with our Stevie Awards for Technology, Stevie Awards for Great Employers, which is our HR program. And we will have a joint program again this year. And you can see that Amazon Web Services won the Grand Award for the most honored organization in last year's competition. I mentioned the category groups, and they're listed here. You can see them. Those are not categories. Those are category groups. And under each category group, there are 11 categories, such as a nonprofit organization of the year, educational institution of the year, company of the year, executive of the year, technology breakthrough of the year, and so on. So yeah, again, explore the categories on the website. If you haven't gotten the entry kit, we encourage you to do that. We'll talk about the process we recommend you follow in a little bit. Before we move on, anything else you want to add on this, Chris? Did we lose Chris? We may have lost Chris. I'll have to log back in. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. Since it's the second edition of the program, we haven't made many changes. We didn't really add any categories. And as it happens, we always ask people, do you have any recommendations for new categories? And we don't get many recommendations. And then after we launch a program, we get a lot of recommendations. So I'm just going to excuse me, folks, I'm just going to make sure that we're still online, because I see some weird things happening. It looks like we're still online. So I'm going to keep talking unless somebody tells me otherwise. Somebody recommended that we add a category for independent technology professional of the year. And that's a good idea. We will add that next year. Unfortunately, we don't have it this year. If you are an independent technology professional, we recommend that you enter the executive of the year category. The eligibility window extends from January 1st of 2023. So it used to be in Stevie Awards programs, the eligibility window was about a year, sometimes 18 months. But with the pandemic, we extended to a little more than 2 years, and we've kept that since the pandemic. So that's quite a large window. But you want to make sure that the achievements that you describe are in that window. Sometimes we get nominations that the judges don't score highly. They're essentially like Lifetime Achievement Award nominations, or describe something at length the organization did in 2014. And that's not what the program is about. We've got a moving window each year, and you have to make sure that, although you can briefly describe achievements from before that window, you want to focus your nominations on the eligibility window. This is the schedule for this year's Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. We had an early bird deadline with discounted fees. And if you're familiar with the Stevie Awards, you know that we have multiple entry deadlines for each program. The reason we do that is, human nature being what it is, people don't act until the entry deadline. If you're like most people, you'll request the entry kit now, or let's say you requested it in January. You won't take action until you're like a week away from the entry deadline. And don't feel bad if you're like that. You're just like everybody else in the world. And the reason we have all these entry deadlines is to give people more reasons to take action, right? So in most of our programs, we have 3 entry deadlines. We sometimes extend the last deadline to make it 4. In the American Business Awards, we start with 2 early bird deadlines. We actually have 4 and sometimes extend to 5. Just more reasons for you to take action. But one of the pieces of advice we'll give you later is don't wait till a week before the deadline. Most likely, you're not going to produce a good entry if you're rushed, and you're not going to be able to dedicate an entire week just to this. You want to get started early, and Chris can talk about that at length when we get to that point. The next entry deadline is May 15th, so in 2 weeks. After May 15th, we will continue to accept entries until June 13th, but we will begin to impose a $55 per entry late fee after the May 15th deadline. So, we've talked to awards consultants who advise their clients, don't worry about the $55, pay the $55, just take as long as you can to produce a good entry. And, Chris, you may have an opinion about that. I'll give you an opportunity to speak to that in a second. The judging will begin right after this May 15th deadline and extend into July. We will announce the winners in July, and then the awards banquet is in New York in mid-September. And again, it's a joint event with our Stevie Awards for Great Employers. We announce, in most of our programs, we announce the winners in advance, generally 5 to 8 weeks in advance of the awards banquet. And winners are invited to come, but one of the nice things about Stevie Awards programs is you don't have to come to the awards banquet. If you come to the banquet, there's a benefit to that. You get to go on stage and make a speech, and we photograph you and we videotape you. We produce a video about you or your organization. We give that to you. If you can't come, you can agree to pay a shipping fee to be sent your award. But even that is optional. If you don't want to come to the banquet, if you don't want to get the trophy, you just want to use the badge to say that you're winning, you can do that. You have all those options. So that's the calendar for this year. Chris, any comments about any of this in terms of the calendar and when people should work on their entries?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying there. A lot of people do leave it to the last minute, and but the big thing you'll miss out on is evidence. So you can leave the tightening it up, the paraphrasing, the polishing to the last minute. But if you've got half an hour to just download the forms, look through it, and start planning your entry, and start saying what, and ask about your achievements and why is it significant. And you might think, why is it significant? Well, I could do with a quote from my director or CEO or a customer to say it's significant, and I'll soundbite that in the entry and I'll put it in my supporting document. All these vital evidence points, they take time. So the last thing you want to do is leave your entry to the last minute and then think, oh, I wish I started this a month ago. Then I could have had time to run a survey of my colleagues or get a testimonial or get an endorsement or get a photograph. If you just plan your entry very quickly now, you'll get a shopping list, as we call it, of all those vital bits and bobs, those assets, and you've got time to get them before you submit. So don't leave it to the last minute. I agree with Michael there.
We have a sidebar here about a comment on email. With these 9 awards programs, we do put out a lot of email reminding people about entry deadlines and new categories and so on. And organizations and individuals who are interested in multiple of our programs, sometimes they complain about the volume of email we put out. And anyone who says to us, you put out too much email, we say to them, if you only want to get one piece of email from us, make it the email newsletter we put out on Thursday afternoons here in the US. So today's edition will go out shortly after this webinar is concluded. And it goes out to more than 30,000 people around the world. And it's really the best way to stay up to date about Stevie Awards programs, the Stevie Award entry deadlines with profiles of new categories and profiles of winners and judges. And if you can only get one email from us, we recommend it be that Stevie Awards update email newsletter. Moving on, this is a 10 reason list that we publish and customize for each of our awards programs. So this looks pretty, if you're familiar with other Stevie Awards programs, this looks pretty identical to any of the reasons why you should consider entering. Again, I'm not going to read all of these. I'll point out some important ones. Many of the world's top executives are going to read your nomination and comment on them. You're not going to know who commented on them. You'll know who's on the juries for your nominations, but the jurors' comments are anonymous, and as are the scores. You're not going to see the jurors' scores, but you will see their comments. You just won't know who provided them. And if they're complimentary, again, you can use them in your promotions. If they're not complimentary, if they have constructive criticism, you can use that criticism to improve your nominations in the future. Again, small organizations, mid-sized organizations have just as much opportunity to win a Stevie Award as world-famous organizations. The quality of your achievements and the quality of your storytelling are what's key, not the notability of your brand as it currently exists. As Chris mentioned earlier, there are lots of different categories to choose from. One of the questions we get most often is, you have a lot of categories. Even in one competition, we have a lot of categories, never mind across 9. How do I find the category that's right for me? And what we say to them is, tell us about your achievement. Tell it is what it is you want to seek recognition for. And then we will point you to the categories that are most appropriate for that. Chris, you probably get the same kind of questions from your clients. Which of these 10 reasons resonate the most with you? And maybe there are other reasons we haven't included here that you can think to add.
Well, there's there's 3 audiences with awards, and people enter awards either to get recognition in their marketing because they want to sell more, and so they want to be an award-winning product, an award-winning service provider, an award-winning employee or something. So it's about the product, whether it's a person or a product. The second one is employee as an employer. They are appealing to current and potential employees, and it's a massive benefit in saying we are an international award-winning employer. Whether it's the category about being an employer of the year, The third one, or the awards, great employers. The third one is investors. Your awards are very on message for seeking investment or people who want to exit their business to say we're a well-run ship. So it's choose a category that supports who you're trying to appeal to and what you're trying to say, as well as matching your story. So sort of factor all those things in. We've done some research. 75% of business buyers and about 75% of consumer buyers are influenced by awards when choosing who to buy from. So, and similarly for who to work for. So the evidence is out there. Why enter awards? It used to be about it's good PR, but now it's just good old common sense. It helps you sell more, hire more, and your business is worth more.
Yeah,
And
and in addition to being important to investors, it's also important to potential business partners, especially as organizations
absolutely,
grow and maybe move across borders. Winning an award like a Stevie Award, it can be a badge of authenticity, to say to potential
yeah.
partners, this organization is real and their achievements have been vetted.
And there are a lot of awards out there that aren't as authentic, but the nice thing is that Stevie Awards holds up under scrutiny. If anyone says, how credible are these awards, they'll go to the website and they can see the brands that enter, the people that judge it, they are a truly credible awards program. But they also have the other quality, which is winnable, as Michael said, 30 to 40% win. So it's competitive enough. It's tough to get a gold. It's not a slam dunk to get a gold, not by a long chalk. So it is credible. A win really means something, but it's winnable. You can be an award winner 30-40% of the time, but it's extremely credible, and the phrasing and the brand you're associating yourself with. And what we see some companies do is they enter teams and individuals for awards as an extension to their internal recognition. Is this project, this person, this team is so good, we're going to enter them into an international award. So there's also that internal morale boost as well from saying, this is so good, I'm going to get you recognized. So there's huge benefits in doing it, which is what keeps us in business. If it was just vanity, people wouldn't put so much effort into winning awards. It's good common sense for a business.
Okay, moving on. This slide is about last year's edition of the Stevie Awards Technology Excellence. You can see some of the logos of some of the winners, and there are some logos there that you're all familiar with, and most of them you're probably not familiar with. And that's one of the great things about Stevie Awards programs, that a company you've never heard of can go on stage before Amazon and after Amazon. You can see some of the quotes from some of the winners from last year, and there are also links on this particular slide, which you'll be able to click once you get to the PowerPoint. And you can actually watch some of the acceptance speech videos from last year's event and the red carpet interviews with winners at last year's event. All right, so this is the important part. So this is what you've come for today. We've spent the first 20 minutes or so going over what the Stevie Awards are. So how do you start? And I mentioned one of the questions we get most often is, you have a lot of categories. How do I figure out which category? So the first thing you have to do is figure out what are the achievements that you want to be recognized for, either as you as an individual or as a team or as an entire organization. And then get the Stevie Awards entry kit. So on all of our individual program websites, you can go to stevieawards.com, which is about all of the Stevie Awards. But each of our programs has its own website, which are linked from stevieawards.com. And on each of those websites is a short form on the homepage. You can put in your name and email address, request the entry kit, and if we're in session, it'll be emailed to you right away. If we're not in session, you'll be added to the list, and when the program opens again, it'll be emailed to you. It lists instructions on how to prepare entries, a list of categories, tips on how to prepare entries. Make sure you get the entry kit. Once you've prepared your entries, and we're going to talk way more about that in a moment, it's very easy to submit your entries through our websites. And right now, each of our programs is siloed, meaning it has its own website, its own system. We are working on a new system where it will all be consolidated into one website, and you only need one account to enter any Stevie Awards program or to apply to be a judge for any Stevie Awards program. And that's a month or two away. But right now, this program is siloed. You'll create an entry submission account. And if you've already prepared your entries, it's a really simple process of then copying and pasting it into the online entry form. Make sure you know which categories you want to enter. If you don't know which categories to enter, email us. Help@stevieawards.com, or me personally. My email address will be on one of the last slides. And we will always steer you towards the category that at least historically has gotten the fewer entries. Chris mentioned, I'm just going to briefly digress here for a moment. Chris mentioned, it's not easy to get a gold Stevie Award. In some ways, I have a hard time convincing people of this. It's actually more of an achievement to get a silver Stevie Award, because the threshold to be the gold winner in a category is actually lower than to be a silver winner. To be a gold winner, you just have to be the highest rated category, the highest rated nomination in your category that's eligible above a certain threshold. But to be a silver winner, you actually have to get above a certain score. So a silver winner in one category could be higher rated than a gold winner in another category. And obviously, in a category that gets 100 entries, no matter how good your entry is, the chances are pretty good there might be one that's slightly better, right? And if it gets a higher score, that's going to be the gold winner, and you might be a silver winner. Whereas in another category that maybe only gets 10 entries, you've got a perhaps a better chance to get the gold. So category selection is really important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then submitting your nominations online is pretty easy. Once you've got all that done, it works like a shopping cart. You put your nominations in, you save all the ones you want to submit. You choose how you want to pay for them if entry fees are required. But again, we have 3 categories, and you can pay your entry fees by credit card or bank transfer. Before we move on, Chris, any tweaks to this process that you would recommend to people? Maybe you have a different process that you follow at Boost Awards.
No, it's very similar. I would just like to add that it is well worth considering multiple categories. You could enter with a bit of editing, an achievement in customer service, to a team of the year. A lot of the categories are similar. I'd have a look at the forms, because some are almost identical and some are actually substantially different. And it's well worth considering entering the same story into 2 or 3 categories. It's only an entry fee difference, and if you're going to the banquet, there's no extra fee for that. But it is playing the statistics. You'll get a different bunch of judges, and as Michael pointed out, if your story is silver standard, you might get a slightly higher scoring one in a category and not another, and that's just playing the odds. If you're going to go to the trouble of writing your entry, then it's quite good to enter multiple categories. So I strongly recommend doing that, and also you can repurpose it for other Stevie Awards out there. So the Stevie Awards for technology is the same deadline as.
And repurpose for other purposes too. That's a really important thing. We'll talk more about that in a slide or two. One of the things I point out to people is, if you write a really effective nomination that resonates with a disinterested third party, and that's probably a phrase I'll probably mention 2 or 3 more times. And a disinterested third party is a professional who's a Stevie Awards judge, who probably doesn't know much about your organization, maybe doesn't know much about your industry, but in your nomination, you can portray for them what your organization is about, the essentials of your industry, and the story that you tell about your achievements. If you can do that in a way that disinterested third party, that judge, can appreciate it and give it a high rating, that story is a work of art, and you can use that story in other ways, not just as award nominations, but you can use it in social media, you can use it on your website and blogs, in investor stories and partner stories. If you produce an effective nomination, you can use it in lots of different ways. So moving on, here are some key entry preparation tips. And again, a lot of text here. I'm not going to go over all of it. I'll just cover some of it. And Chris will add to this. But we both said get started early. We have multiple entry deadlines, give you multiple reasons to get started. In all Stevie Awards categories, you have the option, very rarely is it a requirement, you have the option to provide supporting materials that back up the claims you make in your nomination. And those could be things like press releases, press clippings, PowerPoints, research documents, photographs, videos, whatever you want to add to your nomination to flesh out the story for the judges. We encourage you to do that. We really discourage nominations that don't have any supporting materials at all. We'll cover that again in a second. Make sure your nominations focus on the eligibility period, whatever that window is. The bulk of your achievement described in that should be in that window. If you don't have the resources or the time internally to prepare a really effective nomination, turn to an organization like Boost Awards. There are a number of organizations reputed organizations and individuals around the world who do what Chris's organization does. We can recommend Chris's highly. We always list a few of them on the back cover of our entry kits. But again, if you're not going to have the resources and time to do it internally, you're better off turning out to somebody who does this all the time and knows how to prepare good entries. Most of the entries in Stevie Awards programs are essentially written case studies. In many categories in recent years, we've provided the option to provide a video instead, but video entries are still in the minority, less than 1%, I would say. Other things here I'm not going to read. You can read them at your leisure. Chris, any other things that you recommend that your clients do that's not covered here while they're either pulling together the information they're going to turn over to Boost Awards so that you can help them or prepare the awards or help them prepare the awards, or anything else that they should do during the process?
Well, thank you. You have a look at the entry form, as we've reiterated, as early as possible and get a sense of what you need. And these awards very much focus on achievements, and achievements is a very broad statement. It could be that you launched a product, you innovated, that it was successfully adopted, it got a good reaction. But then the second section is all about the significance. So, okay, you launched it on time, on budget, good reaction, but so what? And you can then build on how it's made a difference to your customers, generated more income, made a difference to the marketplace or society. And those things take a bit of research and a bit of evidencing. So any claim you make about this was a good achievement, this is better than competitors, this our customers loved, this our people loved, you've got to back them up with evidence. And that's where the supporting document is great. You can put 250 words a section for most of the sections for these awards. That's not a lot of words. So what you'll hopefully do is signpost the substantial evidence points in the supporting appendices. Number them as you go along. See Appendix 1 for photograph of this, see Appendix 2 for this testimonial, see Appendix 3 for this graph of adoption over time. And so you don't have reams of text to go into detail, but get them very succinct. You'll probably have to do a lot of paraphrasing, which is fine. But the supporting document, I would strongly recommend using that, but not just a slab of random text. Signpost the judges through your supporting document, appendix them in number order, because you'll find you can't go into detail in the main entry.
Thank you. Okay, we move on here to what I think is the most important slide in the deck. And we're going to go through each of these in series, starting with the one on top. We'll go clockwise. And this will be the third time I've mentioned this. You want to make sure that your nominations are laser focused on the eligibility period, the eligibility window. So the window for the 2025 Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence opened in January 2023, up through the final entry deadline this year in June. So your nominations should be laser focused on achievements during that window. It's okay to briefly mention achievements from before that window if they're pretext to what you've done since then. But your nomination really needs to be focused on that. The judges are coached that they should not rate nominations highly if they're focused too much on achievements from before the eligibility window. So make sure you do that. It's really important to illustrate how the achievements you cited are impacting the world, right? So nothing we do exists in a vacuum. Everything we do and try to achieve in the workplace is for someone else's benefit, right? It's to make our colleagues more happier or more productive, or to make our customers' lives better, or to improve our community. So partly in your nomination, you need to cite what your achievements are, but you also need to cite what the impact of that has been. How has our customers' lives improved? How has community been bettered? That's really important. Whatever claims you make in your nomination, you need to support. And Chris was just talked about the importance of different types of supporting materials, and they can be client testimonials, press clippings, photos, event videos, whatever it is to flesh out the story for the judges. It's important to do that. Now, we understand that there are certain categories where it's kind of hard to find supporting materials. If you're nominating a non-executive employee for one of the non-executive employee categories, and we have a number of those in each of our competitions, it's probably not, you probably don't have a lot of press clippings about that person or a lot of public mentions of that person, but at the very least, you can provide a link to their LinkedIn profile, to your organization's website. Nominations that don't have any supporting materials at all are frowned on. The judges tend to give them lower scores. We're going to talk about this next one in depth because this is really important. It's important that your nomination is prepared as a compelling, well-told story. All of history is told as stories because we as a species, human beings, respond to stories. We don't respond emotionally, intellectually to bullet points, um, to graphs. We respond to stories. And your story should be like any other story. It should be about a before state, the actions you took on the before state, and the end state. So what were the conditions for whatever achievements are that you were citing, how those achievements took place, how they were generated, and what the results have been today. That is a compelling story. Um, Finally, on the far left, we have the nomination is written in third person. We recommend that you don't write your nomination in first person singular. As Chris pointed out the other day, person plural is okay. So if a nomination says we did this, we did that, that's okay. What you don't want is you don't want to submit a nomination that says I did this, I did that. First of all, it won't be as effective as if you're writing in the third person, as if you're writing if you're another person writing about you. So if you're going to submit a nomination just about yourself, write in the third person as, this person did a great job and this is what they've done and this is what the achievements and this has been the impact of that. If you write it first in the first person and then in the third person and then compare them, you'll find that the nomination written with a third person voice is more powerful, is more effective. And it's just natural. Most of us are not really comfortable talking about our achievements in an effective way. We're not natural braggarts. Of course, there are exceptions, but most of us are pretty modest. And so you'll better flesh out your stories, if you distance yourself from yourself in telling your story. Okay, Chris, which of these do you think are the most important, or what flower petals have we left off here?
Well, I think they're an excellent selection of points. I think the first thing you do, that last petal you read out, the voice, is a decision you make at the very start. Who is the voice? Is it we, as entering our team? So it depends on the story, or if it's a business, it might be third person. And you don't want to nominate yourself, I completely agree with that. But it could be that there is your boss is nominating you. So it's written in you as a third person, but it introduces themselves. I am nominating this person because, and then it describes it in the third person. So it's sometimes good to think, who is the voice? What is the voice of a nomination? So that's a big decision to make. But then, yes, tell a story. And people often write entries by copying and pasting stuff on a website and stuff off a document and then sort of jump up and down on it until it fits the word count. I would say put all that to one side and just in one pass do the narrative bits, top to bottom. You can put all the bullets and the details and the statistics later, but it's a narrative. It's really helpful to write that compelling, passionate narrative that will really excite the judge if it's done in one pass. And then you can add the detail later. But that I would strongly recommend that. And it is tough in the word count. So you need to strike that balance of narrative plus very rich, data rich, maybe bullet points. But
Yes,
just
and,
don't.
as you mentioned earlier, Chris, a lot of the entry forms, not all of them, but some of them have multiple sections requesting 250 words, which is not a lot. And what you don't want to do is copy and paste, the typical corporate press release hyperbole that, we all put in our press releases and plug into your entry because it's going to take up a lot of that space. Just last week, an organization emailed to me a nomination they were going to submit to the Stevie Awards for Great Employers, and they wanted my feedback on it. And I'm going to offer that to all of you in a few moments. They wanted my feedback on it before they submitted it. And at least a third of it was a kind of press release blather that is just meaningless because judges see hundreds of nominations and saying things like we care about our employees and we care about our customers. Well, everybody says that. I mean, why even say that? It just takes up a lot of space. You really have to be laser focused on telling that story and discard everything else. I mean, that kind of stuff you can put in your supporting materials. If you want to attach press releases that are full of that stuff, that's fine. But the entry form itself has to be laser focused on the achievements. Okay,
Can
moving
I
on.
just
Good.
very quickly,
Yes.
two missing petals, I'd say. One is the angle. Is the judges, as you've said many times, Michael, are absolutely right. They do not necessarily know about your business or the sector or the context at all. So you help them understand why this is wow, given your context. And that's, we would describe as an angle. And that takes a bit of thought, but that needs to jump out from the page within the narrative. So a press release, for instance, could be targeted at a press that know your industry. The judge does not. Also, I wouldn't underestimate the importance of a punchy intro and a punchy wrap up as well. So yeah, those two additions. So Michael, back to
One
you.
thing we haven't talked about, and I'm just going to mention it briefly, and it's not covered in our slides here, is what is an achievement? What is the magnitude of an achievement that's worthy of being nominated for an award? And it's not necessarily curing cancer or achieving a fusion reactor. An achievement is, again, there's a before state, you've taken action to correct or improve something, and it had an impact. Your achievements don't necessarily have to be world changing, right? If you read through many of the winning nominations from the Stevie Awards from Technology Excellence from last year, which are published on the website, we do publish the gold winners after the winners have had an opportunity to redact any confidential information from their nominations. And if the winners say to us, "I don't want you to publish it at all," we will honor that. But you'll see many of them are, they're not life-changing or world-changing achievements. They're good, solid corporate and individual achievements that are worthy of recognition. So don't discount your achievements before you get some feedback on others about your nomination. Again, a lot of text on this slide. I just want to point out, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have a good writer in-house, turn to specialists. There are a lot of them that do it. Most major PR agencies will prepare and submit nominations for you. But there are organizations like Chris's that focus on award nominations. So we encourage you to reach out to them. And you'll get Chris's contact information in a moment. This is another important slide. So we mentioned earlier that one of the benefits of participating in the Stevie Awards program, whether you win or not, is you will get all the judges' comments on your nominations. And these are some of the most common critiques we see from judges in nominations about nominations that they didn't score highly, that the nominations didn't focus on achievements during the eligibility window, that there was no relation of the achievements cited to their real-world impact, whose life did it make better, that there were no supporting materials. And again, we understand that in some categories, it might be hard to find anything to support it. But at the very least, include a link to your organization's website, which has a lot of information on it, and you at least give the opportunity to the judges to explore that. Or if you're nominating a non-executive individual, put a link to their LinkedIn profile so people can explore that as well. Make sure that your nominations are well written if it's in writing and not a video entry. At least run it through a grammar checker or a spell checker. We understand that for many entrants, English is not their first language. And so if you're writing your nominations in a language other than English, and then using a translation tool to translate it, what we recommend you do is just state at the beginning of your nomination, we use Google Translate or some other tool to translate this from French into English, for example. So the judges know that your first language is not English, and if there are any malapropisms in it, that there's a reason for that. I mentioned earlier, avoid the kind of hyperbolic text we typically include in press releases. It's just going to eat up a lot of the space that you really want to use to focus on your achievements. Make sure that your nominations come close to the word limit. If the word limit for a particular section is 250 words and you only use 50 words, the judges are going to look at that and go, "Really? You had nothing else to say?" On the opposite ends of that, I mentioned this to Chris the other day, a hack for someone who says, we've really tried to edit that section down to 250. We can't get it under 400 words. What I would recommend is put the first 250 words or so in that section. And at the end of that section, say, if you'd like to read more about this, look at this particular attachment that we've attached here. And you can put the rest of that text in that attachment. And as we said, judges are likely not going to know much about your organization, maybe even much about your industry. You want to use some of the space of your entry, just outlining, where does your organization does, what your industry is about, what your organization's history is. You can do that in a couple of sentences. That doesn't necessarily take up a lot of space. Finally, we talk about this more and more often. We recommend that unless you have a proprietary closed AI tool, like a proprietary version of a large language model, that you did not use AI tools to help you craft your nominations. First of all, any proprietary or a confidential information that you put into ChatGPT or any other of these AI tools, you're essentially making public, because anything that you put in there goes into the maw. It becomes part of their large language model to get to use. So be very careful how you use AI tools to prepare your nominations. So Chris, I've talked a little bit about each of those. Maybe you can talk about some of the comments you've seen from judges on your Stevie Awards nominations. Anything else about the use of AI in preparing nominations that you want to add?
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of points. People often send us entries and goes before we start working with them and say, "I don't know why I didn't win." And without fail, there are two comments that I don't even have to open the attachment, and I can say the first one is you didn't answer the questions. So people, instead of listing the achievements and why it's significant in your context, they just put stuff in about, "Hey, let me tell you what I did," rather than say, "Let me tell you what I achieved." And the other one is they make claims and don't back it up with evidence. And as we said repeatedly through this, to say some hyperbolic, empty statement like we're committed to our environment or we're committed to our customers or our customers love this, you have to back it up with evidence. Judges are very skeptical. Words that are misused the most are things like innovative. And judges say, is it? I don't know. Or phenomenal, where you use some really hyperbolic word, but just jars with the judge, because phenomenal, you should instead use it's higher than our target, it's greater than our competitors, and let the numbers do the talking. In terms of AI, I don't, we use Copilot as our enterprise tool. We don't write award entries with Copilot, but it's great for sifting through reams of data. Like you get a 200-page corporate report and you can, get it to list all the references to customers or something. It's useful for processing information, but absolutely judges are smart people. They've seen AI, and AI with award entries has a high propensity to use the same words over and over again. So when they see certain types of language or certain phrases over and over again, they know that everyone's using the same large language model, and it sort of gives it away. And judges often think, if you couldn't be bothered to write it, then why should I be bothered to read it? I think AI has its place, but going back to my point earlier, give the entry a voice. Make sure that it's the right voice, that the nominator, or whether it's third person or a person nominating a colleague or a team nominating itself, give it that authentic feel that this is a human being telling their story
Yes.
rather than a press release in very dry language. You don't want your entry to be soulless. It needs to excite the judge, give it energy, give it passion, give it conviction, tell a story. Just because this is a very factual process doesn't mean that it can lose its soul in the process.
Right. The best, most effective nominations are good stories, flat out.
Absolutely. It's an art and a science.
Yes.
The art is telling a story, the science is backing it up with evidence.
And again, if you produce that effective nomination, you've essentially created a work of art, and that work of art can be used in other ways on social media, on your website, blogging. You can make presentations with it. I mean, there's lots of things you can do with it besides.
So true. Putting your story through the lens of I'm being written by a judge who is very critical and skeptical and doesn't know the context. It's a process that will make your story better. And we often hear about people rewriting it as a case study or a press release or web copy because it generates great content. But don't do it the other way around. Don't take a website and lob it in an award entry. It's the wrong way around.
All right, I'm just going to very briefly touch on this slide because it's got a lot of text. And again, you all can read it when you get the slides, but it's about our judging process. And you'll find pages that cover this essential information on all of our websites. Our systems are designed so that every nomination is seen and rated by at least 5 judges. Sometimes there's a lot more than 5 judges, depending on the size of individual juries and how active those juries are. But we guarantee that every nomination has at least 5 ratings. In the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence this year, every nomination that gets an average score from the judges of 7.75 out of 10 will win some level of recognition. Every nomination that gets 8.25 out of 10 will at least win silver. Basically, nominations that don't win gold or silver will win bronze if they're above 7.75. And that's why I said earlier, it's possible to have a silver winning nomination that's higher rated than a gold one in a different category, which is why category selection is important, right? And one of the questions we get most often is, there are 3 categories that I think I can put my nomination in, but I can only pay for one. I have money for entry fee for one. Which one should we enter? We would always point you towards the one that historically gets the fewer entries because we want to see you do better. We wouldn't point you to a category that had 100 entries if there might be one that usually gets 10 entries. You're more likely to do better in the category that has 10 entries. Again, these are links to some of the gold winning entries in last year's Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. So when you get these slides, you can click on these links and actually read these entries. One of the things we recommend you do if you're unfamiliar with the Stevie Awards process is read some of the past winners. They're good models of nominations the judges scored highly. And in particular categories, you may want to model your nomination this year on what someone did last year. And it's time for questions and answers. So we've gone about 50 minutes, Chris. No, 55 minutes. And we have Maggie or Lindsay monitoring the chat in Zoom to see whether we have any questions. And I should have mentioned earlier, I'm sorry I didn't do it, but if you have questions for us, you can pose them in the chat and we will get to as many as we can in the next few minutes.
Yeah, we got a few questions. A couple people asked if it's okay if they nominate themselves.
And the answer is yes, but we'll go back to the use of the voice. If you're going to nominate yourself, that's fine. We have categories for that. We have an Executive of the Year category and an Employee of the Year category in each of the 20 groups in the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. We just recommend that you use the third person voice in preparing a nomination. So your nomination should be written as if another person is writing about you. And we talked about that earlier, and Chris concurred in that. You're more likely to prepare an effective nomination if you take that approach.
Next question. Someone asked if they want to nominate themselves, do they have to create an entry account under their organization's name, or could they create it under their just personal name?
Well, this has been coming up quite a bit with the Stevie Award for Technology Excellence. For some reason, we have individual technology professionals who are employed by someone, but they want to nominate themselves and disassociate themselves from their employer. That I do not understand. If you want to nominate yourself for work that you've done for another organization, we can't permit you to disassociate your achievements from that organization's name. If you're working for an organization and you're freelancing or you're moonlighting, doing something else, and you want to nominate yourself for your moonlighting, that's fine. You don't have to include the organization name, but we can't permit you to claim achievements and disassociate those achievements from the organization that actually paid you for those achievements. Do you get questions like that, Chris, for individuals who come to you?
It's interesting. The technology industry has a huge appetite for awards, and the CV agenda, so helping people with their resume, is a big part of it. And absolutely, a lot of brands have very strict policies. It could be on the use of photographs, for use of a business email address. If you work for a big brand and you nominate yourself in the context, I would be very, very careful, and because it could be a career limiting mistake. So I'm absolutely with you on that one. If you want to enter yourself as an individual for your Lifetime Achievement Awards in the sphere of being a Chief Technology Officer, and you reference and maybe get testimonials from another brand, that's okay. But even mentioning a brand without the permission of that brand, I've seen a lot of people get into trouble with that, and you don't want to start annoying even ex-clients or employers. Yeah, I'm totally with you there, Mike.
Well, I think the larger the organization, the more likely it is you need to go and get someone's permission for you to be able to nominate. If you're working for a small organization or a mid-sized organization, the president or CEO is probably in the next office to you. You can just go and say, "Look, I'm going to do this. Is that okay?" But if you're working for some of the organizations whose names we all know, you probably want to get permission before you do it.
100%.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, someone asked, do we need to use our company email address for Stevie Awards communications, or could they use their Gmail?
Well, here's the thing. Increasingly, we need to verify the identity of entrants and judges. We get a lot of people applying to be judges using Gmail address. And if you're applying to be a judge using a Gmail address, we need to put you through our identity verification process, where you need to send us a dated selfie. You need to send us a copy of your valid photo ID. We need to see your business's business registration. We need you to prove who you are. But if you're with Amazon and or a Meta and you're using a Meta business address, it's pretty easy to verify that you're actually with Meta, right? And we probably don't have to verify your identity. once we verify your identity, if you want to switch to communication via Gmail address, email address, we can do that. But increasingly, we have to do that for entrants as well. If we know your organization and you're submitting nominations using a Gmail, if we know you, we're not going to put you through the verification ringer. But increasingly, you know, if we don't know your organization, we got to make sure your organization is real, right? We've had occasions where, you know, people have submitted fake nominations, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So the answer is, we recommend that you start the process with your work email address so we can verify who you are. And then after that, if you want us to communicate ongoing to a Gmail address or a Yahoo address, whatever, we can do that. Chris, do you get questions like that from your clients?
I completely agree with you on that point.
Okay. Yeah, and we're spending an increasing amount of time on identity verification for both judges and entrants.
Someone else asked, if we win, do we get any sort of badge that we can use on platforms like LinkedIn or any other evidence of me being a winner that I can post online?
Yes, if you go to the Stevie Awards for Technology website right now, go to stevieawards.com. Well, after this webinar, not right now. stevieawards.com/tech, and you mouse over the awards on the navigation bar, the link that says the awards. You'll find a page called Winners Circle, and if you go to that page, you'll see the winners resources we made available to the 2024 winners, and they include winners badges that can be used on social media, email signatures, websites, however. Suggested social media text, banners to put on one's LinkedIn profile, and other things. And every winner has access to those free of charge. So you don't have to come to the awards banquet. You don't have to get your trophy at the event. You don't have to pay to ship your trophy. You can just use those badges if you're a winner, and there's no cost to use them. And we have pages like that for all of our awards programs, and we update them every year.
Another similar question. Do winners get any sort of letters or certificates they could use as evidence in case someone wants to share those or post those online?
Well, apart from the badges that we make available to winners on the Winner Circle page, you know, we sell extra awards in our store. So if you're a trophy winner and you want to order extra copies of the trophy to share with colleagues or clients, you can do that. Traditionally, we've also sold certificates, paper certificates, you know, that can be framed and mounted in the store. And just this week, we started selling e-certificates in the store. And e-certificates can be deployed easily on LinkedIn profiles or elsewhere online. They include a verification feature, so someone can scan the QR code on the e-certificates to verify that they're legitimate, authenticate them, and they can even be printed out. So the short answer is no, winners don't automatically get a certificate. Winners if they come to the awards ceremony, they get a trophy or a medallion, a silver or bronze medallion, depending on the level that they won. But winners don't automatically get a certificate. You can order one if you'd like.
Someone else asked, is this program available to companies in Egypt? I replied, yes, it's an international program.
Yes, the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence is one of our awards programs that's open to all organizations and individuals worldwide. It doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter who you work for or what you do. If you have a nomination of achievements that fits in one of the 20 times 11 categories in the competition, you're welcome to submit it.
I think that was all of our questions.
Okay, and I think we're just a little bit past time. So Chris, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Let's move on. And you know, I mentioned earlier that there are other organizations besides Boost Awards that will help organizations and individuals prepare and submit their nominations. There are a couple of other ones listed on this slide, and you can see that when you get the PowerPoint. But you know, here's my information and Chris's information, and I will hold out to each of you with us today an offer that I make every time we do this, and surprisingly, few people take me up on it. And that is, if you'd like some objective feedback on your nomination after you've prepared it, before you submit it, happy to do that. Just email it to michael@stevieawards.com or a general help inbox, help@stevieawards.com. If I think it's perfect as it is, I will tell you that. If I think it needs something, if it's missing something, or you're just totally taking the wrong track, I'm a New Yorker, I'm very direct, I will tell you. For some reason, very few people take me up on that offer, and I'm not a judge. I'm just an administrator. My opinion doesn't count for anything other than the fact that we've seen many winning nominations over the years, and I can tell just by looking and reading a nomination whether the judges will think it's effective. Chris, thank you again for joining us today. Anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, just to say thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed the session, and I hope people have found it helpful.
Right. So if you want feedback on your nomination, don't send it to Chris. Chris gets paid for what he does. Send it to me. If you need help with your nomination, getting started and preparing it, go to Chris and go to Boost Awards. They do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. You will get a recording of this shortly, and also get a copy of the slides. Thank you and good luck in this year's Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence.